Okay, so welcome everybody to this webinar, and good morning or good afternoon. My name is Nathalie Drouin. I'm the editor-in-chief of the journal, and I have the pleasure today to be with my co-editor-in-chief, Francesco Di Mandaloni, and John Waslek, the editorial assistant, who will present the topic today: what do we look for in a paper desk acceptance? But before we start, let me say a few words about the journal. Then Francesco will also explain some specific things about the journal, and then we will have John who will present the main topic today. So it is always important to understand the aims and scope of a journal when you want to submit a paper. So the journal is looking at advances theory, research, and practice of all aspects of project management. So we are looking at theoretical and empirical research promoting the understanding of project management. And we are also looking at innovation, novel project management insights, using, and this is really important, multidisciplinary approaches rooted in social sciences. So we are a big team now, and I'm very pleased to present our editorial team. So as I mentioned, I'm the editor-in-chief. Francesco is the co-editor-in-chief, but we also have associate editors, and they are with us today. We have Lin Zhou. Lin Zhou is from BI Norwegian Business School in Norway, and Lin Zhou is looking at governance, papers that are related to governance, innovation, mega projects, leadership, and so on. We have Carl from University of Johannesburg in South Africa. And Carl is really focusing on paper that look at IT, IS, AI, risk management benefits, realization, and digitalization. And we have Thomas, who is from Tampere University in Finland, and is taking care of the papers who are look at management of complex projects, sustainability, marketing, interorganizational networks, and project business. The editorial assistant, John, who will present today, and John, we are attached to the same university. And we have two PhD students working with us very hard, our social media managers, Eric and Yinchen from Politecnico di Milano University in Italy. I'm always very happy to mention that our site score continuously increase over the years. And you can see from the last years, we start from 2.2 and now we reach 7. And our impact factor, the 5-year impact factor is around 3.2. And we cross our fingers now that this year, the impact factor will increase again. So this is important for the journal. This is important for you. And this is important to work hard and work with you in order to increase continuously this impact factor.
I think now, thank you very much, Natalie, for the introduction of the journal. Thank you for everyone attending today. So my name is Francesco Di Maddaloni. I'm based at UCL in London, and I am an associate professor in project studies. So I'm really happy to join this fantastic team. When I joined, we had a long conversation with Natalie about what can we do in order to increase the impact, and of course, improve the experience of the prospective authors. Today's event exactly signs one of the milestones. It's one of the first events that we are going to do, but many more will follow. And one of the commitments of the journal is also to have a more structured approach in the way that we launch a special issue, call for proposals. The one that in front of you has been recently approved and is about the intersection between AI, innovation, and project management. If you're interested to this call, please have a look to our website. And I think the deadline is end of October for this special call. As I mentioned to you, we will have a structured approach for proposal. So I kindly invite you and your colleagues to look further to this information, because we will have two different calls per year. One starting in July the 1st, so very soon now, and closing in September, end of September. And the other one that just closed on the 30th of April, which start on the February 1st. Between this window, we are accepting proposal for evaluation, and if the proposal is good and there is good way of making contribution, this proposal will be accepted by us and then by Emerald and will be published to the International Journal of Managing Project in Business. Another activity that will be very relevant for the audience that we have today is the call for reviewers. So the quality of the journal, as John will actually explain in a bit, is made of the quality of reviewers that we receive. For that reason, we as a journal are committed to be really inclusive and also keen to nurture our project management research community. And we have a call for reviewers, okay? This is open to everyone that wants to contribute to the journal. If you have expertise already on reviewing paper, the process will be a little bit smoother. We will ask you your CV, and based on the CV and experience that you have, you will be likely to be included into the review pool that we have. However, this is also and mainly focused for those that have not enough experience in reviewing paper, but they are interested to do so. In doing so, we actually planning to run 3 online workshops over the next 6 months, starting from September, ending in February, in which the reviewers, prospective reviewers that don't have enough experience, will be coached by a senior scholar, and we will follow the process of reviewing, so teaching basically the process and principle of reviewing a good paper. And of course, who is going to attend will also have a certificate of attendance, which will play a role in the CV and development profile of the applicant. I think it's enough from my side. It's time now to go to the meaty part. I'm really happy to introduce John, which will tell you the secret, basically the principle of not desk rejection, but desk acceptance. And this is extremely important. So enjoy the workshop, and thank you again for being with us today.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for attending. I'm John Weislook. I'm the editorial assistant for the journal, and I manage the submission desk. I'm the person who reviews unsubmitted or unsolicited papers that come to us through Scholar One, and then I review them to make the decision, are they worthy to go on for peer review? This is what I'll be explaining my process in this. Next slide, please. And for this first slide, this is one of the metrics of the journal. This shows how many papers we get in a year and how many we do accept that make it into print. It's about a 14%, 15% average acceptance rate. I'm here today to say how to improve your chances and also to help us increase that 15%. I also want to explain this to be transparent. I think it's very important that the journal kind of lifts back the curtain of what goes on so that we can share with you and that you know the process and what to expect when you submit a paper and what to get for the review. So one of the other statistics we have is the timeline for submissions, which is on the next slide. And I'll be talking about the very upfront part. There's the submissions all the way to the left-hand side, that pinkish dot, and the desk acceptance, that's my role in the journal. We're very competitive and very aggressive. I think in our schedules, we take about a month or in total. Our end of the process to getting publication is about 2.5 months. To get a desk acceptance, it is now running about a week or less in time. So now let me go into how does a paper get to peer review. So I'll be explaining criteria that I look for when I do a desk review, the process about how I go through it. I'll share with you some of the common reasons for why a paper doesn't get to desk peer review, and then I'll share some slides on how you can get involved with the journal and submit papers. So the first slide I'd like to talk about are the topics. This is the first thing that I look at when I review a paper. What is the topic on? And is it suitable? So our focus at the journal, our editorial focus is to look at projects as managing in business. We are also concerned about theory, about the development of theory. And this goes to really the heart of what the journal's about. We are part of the literature. We keep adding to the literature. And so theory is really the mortar of what holds the literature together, and we're adding to that. We also do articles on practice, but if they are practiced and applied, there has to be that strong theoretical base so that we can place it within the corpus of the literature. What we don't publish on are the development of tools or methods, in the sense that sometimes I will get a paper, it will discuss a new tool, a new method, and then present a case study of how it was implemented and whether it worked or not. We don't really go into that because it's something that we can't verify for ourselves. We also do not look at project management as an engineering science. So if you're looking at an algorithm for making decisions, and there's a lot of math involved, or we seem to get a lot of papers about fuzzy algorithms, that type of paper is beyond what we do. We're really focused on about projects as organizational science, as a social science. That is the strength of it. That means, we are about managing projects and business rather than engineering. The research focus of the journal is, of course, about the project. This is the center of the journal's mission. And we are looking at the project. It could be, what is a project? What are the boundaries of the project? The upfront parts of the project. Where does it start? Or the end of the project? That's another boundary issue that could be examined. We look at all types of projects. We go from mega projects, complex projects. I'd like to see papers on projects that are smaller, but that are relevant and have a macro influence overall to project management. We also look at the context created by projects and what that means. We looked at project-based organizations. So we're not only looking at the project as the unit, but also project-based organizations. So we go a little bit beyond the project level, and we will look at organizational level issues as long as it's a project-based organization. We need that project tie-in. And of course, we'll look at managing projects and those issues that are intended. So we will look at, risk, stakeholder planning, all the things that need to be managed to have a project deliver or not deliver a goal. Another part of our research focus that we're very aggressive about is the methods. We love to get novel methods, whether it be mixed methods, action research, where one tries out a theory in action and describes it as a case study, or ethnography is another type of research that we'd be very interested in. So we're very broad in the type of research we accept. We're just not qualitative, we're just not quantitative. We like to look at all different methods, and especially novel methods that push the envelope in research. So I look at the topic when I start looking at my desk review and to make sure that it falls in it. And surprisingly enough, there's a fair amount of papers that do not meet this criteria. So that's the first checklist. The next checklist I look at is the introduction. The introduction slide, please. And the introduction tells me a lot. First thing, I find introductions are very hard to write properly. As a researcher, one has all these ideas in mind, theory, data, phenomenon, whether writ small in the investigation or large at large, and try to distill that down into introduction and have that right level of detail where you're introducing the problem. You're not getting into too much detail, but you're not, introducing it probably without enough detail. It's a very hard task to write a good introduction. So that quality of writing is evident from the introduction and the presentation skill too. Those are two skills that jump out to me right away when I start reading a paper. At the introduction, usually authors will place the research problem or the research gap, and that's another question I look at. Is this a gap that is significant enough to move theory forward? What is the contribution of this paper? Is it significant? And also the relevance of the research problem to the editorial mission of the journal and also its research mission. Is it a relevant identified research gap? So that's the first one. And it's a very, the first impression you make is through the introduction. Of course, I look at the abstract, but that gives me the general idea about the topic and what to expect. The introduction is when I'm really starting to get into the paper and seeing the quality of the research that's being presented to me. The next thing I look at are the references. I like to go from the beginning to look at, the entrance of the paper, but then I like to go straight to the references because I'm looking at the foundation of the paper. What is this paper built upon? What are its sources? Where is it getting the theory that it's building upon? So I look at the quality of the sources to make sure that they're referee journals. I also like to see what types of journals. Are they project management? Are they management science? It could be a wide range. I just reviewed a paper last night. It's on a novel area. It had a lot of management science. It had some HR science. It did have project management, but I like to see if there's a good, rich amount of sources. I also like to make sure that the references are current, so I will look for 24 and 25, citations in 23. It's very rare that I will reject a paper on the age of the references presented, but it has happened. I also like to see the project management journals in there, see which ones are being cited, whether there are our main competitors, PMJ or International Journal of Project Management. And also I like to see that our own journal is referenced. When I see that, that means that this researcher has really done homework, that they know that this paper is a good fit for our journal. They understand our journal. It's very impressive to see that because it shows the level of care, the level of quality that went into creating these references. So the references are the first bedrock that I look at. This is the first level foundation. The next level foundation is the literature review. So that slide, please. Great. So the literature review, for me, this is probably the key section. And it's the key section because I think it speaks really to the journal's mission. We are adding to the literature review. We are adding to literature, at large. So the literature review lets me know, how does this paper fit into the corpus of literature overall? What will the contribution? How is it done? It also shows me the researcher's analytical abilities. There's the research problem. There may be a research question. The researcher may be questioning existent theory, may have found a deficiency in it, and may present, an argument of why it's deficient and what that this researcher is proposing will make up for this gap or this deficiency. I look for analysis rather than summation. Of course, summation is important because not everybody is expert in every field. So a certain amount of summation I do expect to help the reader be able to form a basis and judge about the argument being made and the analysis being presented. But if there's too much summation, that can be a problem. I like to look at the rigor of the argument. Does it make sense? Is it expansive? Does it have good scope? Is this person really making the argument and showing where this paper belongs overall in the literature? Is this paper giving a good foundation so that the research that is going to be presented makes sense, that it has its anchor to what exists, and it has that anchor in the literature so that other researchers will be able to build upon it. It's not so much that the literature review is important for this paper, of course it is, but it will also be important for when it gets published and how other researchers will review it as well. So literature review, that's a very key section for me. Then the next section I look at is the methodology and research design. There we go. This is a very important area too. Now, this is one of the areas that basically is set in stone. The literature review, pretty much set in stone. A reviewer, a peer reviewer makes suggestions to add to it. But basically the methodology and research and design, as well as the research problem and research question, are pretty much set in stone. This is something that one cannot go back and redo. It's done. So this is a very key area for me to look at. And I will look at, is it is the methodology and research design, is it appropriate for the question being examined? Does the question seem to beg that, it's going to be a case study looking at what goes on or how something functions? Or is it going to be a research that is looking at how things factor-wise or influence that is being exerted? Of course, I like to see other besides just plain quantitative or straight qualitative. Perhaps it's going into ethnography and be looking at what really goes on in an in-depth and rigorous manner. I also like to see what the data set is. If it's a quantitative research, I like to see a good, healthy size of data set and also relevant participants, whether usually in a questionnaire. If it's going to be case study type or more quantitative type of research, I like to see whether it's going to be a very longitudinal study, focused very well. I like to look at the relevance of the organization or the subject studied. Do they seem to be good candidates and fit for the problem that's being examined? Does it make sense? I also like to look at the quality of research tools, and this is particularly important if I'm looking at a paper that presents itself as a literature review. Sometimes literature reviews will come in, that'll be the whole entire investigation. They'll present some literature at the beginning, but then they'll go down and drill down into why they're doing this as a literature review and how they looked at the literature and what they suggested and what tools, whether, it's been automated or if it's been done by hand, and just the overall rigor that's being presented so that this data that is being used is strong enough so that the results that come out of it can be generalized and make a contribution overall. After that, of course, I'll look at the results section. And if a paper has really had a strong literature review, a strong research methodology and design section, it's very rare that the results section is going to fall flat. And if it does, or if it's wanting, this is something where somebody can go back and maybe tweak a report, study a little bit more. If the argument has been presented, usually at this point, I'm leaning towards, if everything has been checked, I'm leaning towards acceptance. The one thing I will look at, if the literature review seems to be a little lacking in certain ways, a little short, maybe not in much depth or scope, I like to go look at the theoretical discussion that's given. I also like to look at the practical discussion that's given to see how well it relates to literature. But that's something I'm not going to really go too strong on because, again, that is something that is not as set in stone as the research problem or the design. These are things that perhaps a peer reviewer could go and look at and say that could be improved. All right, so if all these things have happened, then we get to the happy state of paper accepted for peer review. And when I'm doing the process, if it's a paper that's really strong and really good, my life is so much easier because reviewing great papers, a good, strong paper, is a very easy thing to do. It's like, you've hit the introduction, you've hit the literature review, you've hit the design. It's fascinating reading if it's good research. It makes my life great. So I really, get very excited when I'm being able to accept a paper because I feel like I'm really making a contribution to the journal overall. So those are the steps that I look at when I accept a paper for peer review. the introduction, at the problem being presented, the gap, seeing if it's relevant. Also then look at the literature, the references to make sure that, they are strong enough, that they're varied enough, that they're good enough quality and they're current. The literature review section again to see how this paper fits overall in theory and in literature, and then the research design to make sure it's rigorous and that what's being done will be able to be generalized for more theory building. Okay, so now I've talked about what I look for when I accept it. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about what to be careful with. And one of the first things, I get a lot of papers in that will, and they're usually quantitative, and there'll be like a dependent variable, A. And then there's some type of moderating or mediating variable, C, and somehow they all influence project success. And often with these type of papers, it's almost as if the researcher is doing research by fill in the blanks. And the dependent variable project success is not examined well. Project success, there's been a lot published about it. So if project success is going to be discussed, I expect a good literature review on it because the contribution to it has to be very novel and new. And also, one can't just present quantitative research without really going into how these other factors affect the dependent variable and why. One of the other flags I find is if in the literature review that the standards are used as sources. The standards, these bodies of knowledge, they're kind of received wisdom done by committees. They're not the same as scientific literature that's been peer reviewed. Now, if a paper discusses how these standards are used in practice, how they influence theory, if it's something about the standards and not so much the standards trying to support theory, then that's acceptable. Another type of paper that is a red flag for me is a structured literature review. If a researcher is submitting a literature review as an entire investigation, this literature review has to be very rigorous, very analytical, and it has to be related to theory. Some type of theoretical framework has to come forward to it. Possibly a theoretical framework for new research in the area is a common thing. However, I get a lot of structured literature reviews that just tend to get into factors. They get into bibliometrics or scientometrics, which are nice to know. But if there isn't that connection to the theory at large, it's just not acceptable, unfortunately. A literature review has to have that extra step where theory is present. Another areas too is, this goes back to, is this a significant gap? Perhaps a researcher will be looking at a certain phenomenon within the context of a country or an area of the globe. And the contribution would be, this is the first paper to look at phenomenon X and country Y. Perhaps this might be able to get onto peer review. It would be able to get to peer review if the context of this boundary is explained and why it's important, and it's explained in such a way that people from other boundaries can benefit from it. Is there something about it? But if it's just because of this area and where something occurred is the contribution, that's not strong enough to add to the literature review. Literature reviews that do not pass on to peer review often tend to be summation. It'll be this person said that person said this, and then usually there'll be a hypothesis that'll follow after 3 statements about summation. Summation is not the same as analysis. It could be the basis of analysis, but it is not analysis. And if a literature review is just summing up of papers, especially some researchers will just create a table of, these are all the papers that are in this area, and this is what they contribute. That may be worthwhile if there's further discussion, but if that is considered to be the literature review, that's not acceptable. And finally, the formatting guidelines. Sometimes I'll have to reject a paper because formatting guidelines haven't been accepted. Usually if the guidelines haven't been accepted, and usually it's not, the references haven't been done properly, this is a sign that this is not serious research to me. that this researcher didn't take enough time to look at what the journal requires. And so, this is a big flag for me. Sometimes, though, I've gotten papers in that are really excellent, but somehow identifying information has been put on the paper. So in cases like that, where it's something easily fixed and it is a strong paper, otherwise, I'll go back to the author and say, I have to reject this for this reason. Please submit and format this properly and take out this information. So guidelines, of course, are very important because it shows that, the seriousness of the researcher and the research presented. So after explaining what I look for and not to do, I'd like to present some slides about how to get involved with the paper. So if you're interested in submitting for it, there is a QR code for you to go to our author guidelines page. It'll take you straight there. It's very handy. I just want to reiterate that please note identifying information on the file you submit. When you submit it, you'll be asked to fill in fields that are structured abstract. That is something that is particular to Emerald. It's one of their strengths. So you'll go through a structured abstract rather than the usual abstract that's maybe a paragraph explaining the paper. Also, I'd like to talk about the use of AI. AI is acceptable as a tool just as any word processor software would be. If you're using AI to improve language or improve writing, that's very acceptable. However, if you're using AI to do a literature review, that's not acceptable. And I have been able to spot that. I mean, someone tested me on it, and I was actually able to spot the AI section in a paper of a literature review they submitted to us, and they let me know about it. So although there are very few tools and we don't use them, we're doing it on the honor system, but honestly, no AI for literature reviews or presenting results. And if you want to submit a paper, the next slide has the QR code for it. This will take you to the submissions webpage. And once you do that, it will take you off to Scholar One. That is the software, that is the system that we use to manage the journal. So you'll have to create an account on Scholar One, and ORCID is required for this to submit the paper. So I'm very excited about this. And of course, if you are thinking about a paper, this slide lets you know about the breadth of the articles that we cover. There's, AI, challenges in Agile. You can see a great breadth that we cover in the journal, and we would like to do it. And also, when I ask you about submitting to the journal, I think this is a very important for new researchers, people starting out their career. We are a growing journal, and we want you to grow with us. This is a great journal to start off a research career, an academic career, and it's also a great journal to continue that career throughout your years. So I encourage you very strongly to submit to the journal, and I hope you listen to the advice I've given you so that you'll be able to get your paper to peer review. And also, let me say that once I accept a paper for peer review, your chances to get to publication are about 2 to 1 or 2 and 3. This is my own calculation based on my own reviews and what gets published. But once you get past the desk submission and get into peer review, your chances for publication go up greatly by at least a factor of, instead of 15%, you're going up to at least 50 or 60%. So I hope you do take these points that I gave you to heart, and I look forward to probably reviewing one of your papers very soon. Okay, does anybody have questions for me? Because I'd love to answer them.
Yeah, first of all, John, I'll say thank you very much for these great insights and your recommendation. And we are very pleased to receive all your questions, and please do not hesitate. John is there and is ready to answer your questions.
John, since no one wants to ask, it's Carl.
Yes.
In the general guidelines, because that's something I always battle with.
Well,
the general guidelines says 12,000 words maximum, and then there's 250 words for a table and 250 words for a figure. And eventually, if I add all of those things, my papers end up like 40,000 words, So how strict are we with those tables and figures numbers, because I mean, just the paper that I submitted the other day had about 14 tables in it. And those tables are necessary. So I was just wondering, how strict are we with those kind of things? Because it might deter some prospective submissions.
All right. I'll answer that in a different way. And apart from doing project management research, I also worked for a publisher, not besides Emerald, for another publisher. I've worked for several publishing houses and I've worked in journals. Now, if this were just when they used to just create papers, journals on paper, that probably was very important because you'd have your page count budget that you'd have to meet. It's a very, mundane but very powerful factor. These days, with everything in electronic, I don't think it's that crucial. I will say I have received once one paper. It was extremely long and it came in two parts that were very long. And my problem is that, it was a good paper. There were some areas in that paper and those papers that really should have been published. But my dilemma was, I can't go back to the author and, as the desk reviewer, and say, you really should revise this, and then I'll approve it, because I'm not that person that making that decision about whether it can be published or not. Those are the peer reviewers. If something comes in overly long, I would say to our editors in chiefs, they'll say, look, this looks like a good paper. Please take a look at it yourselves, or look at the, give heads up to the peer reviewers. It doesn't happen that very often. I don't see a paper, as I said, I can think of one in my experience. So I would pay attention to the page size, try to hit it. But I mean, if you're going over by 100%, I'd be concerned. If you're going over by 10, 15, 20%, I really wouldn't be that concerned. I hope I answered that. I hope I'm not discouraging people about length.
Lindsay?
Yeah, thank you. Great presentation, John. I just happen to have a question that's one of the scholars in China that's asking me to ask on behalf of them, because I think a large, not large, but relatively large portion of submissions are from like non-English speaking countries.
Yes.
Yeah, so one of their concerns will be, is language and certain issue, they worry about that? If they should, at what stage should they solve the problems? And is it possible for them to use like artificial intelligence to help them improve their language? Is it also an ethical concern? Yeah.
Yes, they can use AI as like a grammar or a syntax or semantics to help them phrase things, to get it out properly, to clean it up. Yeah, that is acceptable. Also, Emerald does offer services to people, to researchers who are not that confident in their English. Based on all the papers that I've read, it's not that often that I get a paper where there are really like language issues that I feel that are fairly serious. That honestly doesn't occur that often. Usually if the researcher is serious about doing a paper, the level of the language is, understandable. It's very infrequent that I reject a paper just because I can't understand it, because the language is so bad, or there it's questionable. So, okay.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Francesco, you have something to say?
I am the next, then Natalie, and then there is, John, I don't know if you can have a look to the chat. There is also Dennis that wrote something to you. Coming back to the length of the article, also answer a little bit to what Carl say. To me, it's really, it really depends on the type of research that you're doing. Qualitative research mainly require more space, right? Because you need to go into direct quotation, and probably, John, one of the best way is to put sometimes supportive data into appendix. I don't know now the journal how then we'll be able to publish the appendix or not. I don't know if you have this information. I think for sure it will be in the online version of the paper. You can usually find appendixes supporting material and tables at the end of the article. But I don't know then when it gets published, because the budget page that the editors has, if that amount of data will be present or not. Do you know, John, if this is the case or not?
I don't work with the people that do the production too often, but as I would say from my own experience in publishing, the paper and the online print, I don't even know if the journal actually comes out in print anymore. If it does, I think it's all online. So that page count budget. But if there's just too much data being presented, that's more a presentation style. I mean, if 14 tables, if they're relevant in certain ways and the paper makes that case when you're presenting the results, that's fine. But sometimes you'll get papers that just throw data sets in there, and it's just not readable, and it just doesn't make sense to print something like that in a journal. So I would have to ask one of the people that actually produced the thing, but I can understand why researchers are concerned about it, but practically, I've never really read anything and said, "Oh my gosh, this is way too long. We could never publish it."
Something that
And
we don't
that's
do.
just anecdotally. But
Yeah,
if you want, I can research it further and get back to whoever.
thanks, John. But
Send me an
something that we
email.
don't
That's what
do.
the email's for, and I will research this further.
Yeah, something
Okay.
that we don't do is charge money for extra pages. Some journal, they have a specific amount of pages that you can do. If you go beyond that, they charge money. I think, I don't know how many dollars per page. But for sure, we don't do that.
Okay.
Natalie?
Oh,
Yes,
can
I
I?
have some key points about that, and then I think we should address some questions raised by the audience.
Yes.
But just for the length, I want the people to understand clearly that it's much better to respect 12,000 words because it facilitates the work we have to do with the Emerald team, and then we don't have this we protect ourselves from these comments saying that that paper is a bit too long, doesn't respect, so we don't want to enter into this this circle. So I think the key message here is really, if you can, and please respect the 12,000 words, which is make our lives and the next steps much easier. And within 12,000 words, I think it is a good the length is enough to express yourself, even if you conduct case studies, and then it forces you to focus on the key element. That's what I wanted to clarify. And over the years, I have to admit that we publish only papers that were no more than 12,000 words. The other thing as well is AI. AI, as you mentioned, John, you can use it for language issue, but you also can hire professionals who can edit your paper before you submit, and it helps. It helps to clarify your thoughts. And as you know, English is not my first language, so this is what I do most of the time. I hired someone to revise the paper, and then it make it easy for everybody, because you reach this better level of English to communicate your thoughts when you hired someone to revise it. And as John say, before publishing, the journal also revise it to make sure that there's it is a good level of English before we publish, and then you will have remarks from the journal editing that you need to revise. But now I see very good question from Dennis about conference papers. So, John, if you want to address this as well.
Yes, that'd be fine. In terms of conference paper, I'm looking at him. It was an essay originally, so essays are more subjective types of writing, and we accept more objective. So if you're going to take that essay that was at a conference, this may be a good platform to create a scientific article, research from it. If it's essay, I'm guessing that there's going to be theoretical discussion. So it is a good way to start, but you're going to have a more subjective point of view taken to it. You're going to have to link it strongly to the literature, so there's a theoretical contribution. I see Dennis said that there is about sustainability and its empirical actors. That's fine. Democratic capital investment guidance. At the level of a project, that would be very interesting to see how those two would connect, and I'd be very interested to read that. So, but basically, you can take that paper and use it as the seed for an article, but it'll have to have a strong theoretical base. If there's empirical data in there, then you're going to have to explain why you chose it and how. And but yes, you can use that as a basis. Does that square with what you would find, Natalie and Francesco?
Yeah. So one of the best advice is we are here, guys. Yeah, we are here to support you. If you do believe that the paper, if you want to check if the paper is fit for purpose, don't hesitate to send to me or Natalie a draft of your paper to say, is it fit for your journal? Would you be interested to this paper? Yeah, this will save our time and your time as well. So based on the comment, I can see the potential, but as you rightly say, John, it has to be an academic paper, right? So this is an academic journal and must have rigor, yeah, in the way a theoretical paper is developed or an empirical paper is presented. So if you are not sure for the fit of purpose, yeah, don't randomly submit the paper, because as John say, the majority of the desk rejection is because the paper is not fit for purpose, does not meet our objective. By reading through your line, Dennis, I can see potential, probably a good fit. But if you are not sure, just don't be afraid to send us your paper, and we can straight away see if there is potential or not, and especially if there is fit for the journal or not.
All right.
Any other questions?
Yeah, any other questions? Yeah.
I think that's it.
Yeah. So I think we have done a great overview of what's going to happen behind the scene of our journal, right? So John is always there. And John, something that you didn't say, that every time that you enter the system, your intention is to accept a paper rather than reject it, right? So you find all the criteria to accept it rather than rejecting. So
that's correct.
And this is what we really want from our prospective authors, to a good fit, and from our side is plenty of support that we can provide. Today is just one of the many events that we will create to support our project management community. And if you're an academic or not a practitioner, doesn't really matter. What matters is that your work fit for purpose has got both rigor and relevance for the journal. I don't know if Natalie, you want to add something, but as we said, just follow us on LinkedIn, for example, where all our activities are actually promoted. And main things, read our academic papers. Yeah, read what has been published, so you understand what we're looking for and what is the quality that we expect for the paper to be accepted and published.
Yeah.
And I can add to that we have a great team, a great editorial team. We are, as Francesco mentioned, we are there to help you, and this is also our mission, to help you grow in your career, help you to publish, and I like to say, when we have a meeting, we are a very friendly and flexible team, and we are there for you, and this is what you have to remember as well. So thank you very much for being with us today. And please follow us in LinkedIn
Yes.
or in India, not India, but China. We also have, how do you call that? WeChat. So follow us, please. And we will have more and more events like this that we would like to share with you our thoughts. And we think this is very important to be close to you and to help you in your career, in publishing, and so on. So again, many thanks. Many thanks to my lovely editorial team, and many thanks to John for this great presentation again.
All thanks to you. So I look forward to accepting your paper when you submit it.
Thank you very much. Thank
All
you,
right.
everyone. Have a lovely day.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.